Hello and welcome back to another breaking news update. My name is Jimmy Boyd and you are watching Boyd News. I want to thank you so much for tuning in today. Really appreciate you being here because we're going to be talking about Ukraine now. I want to give you some updates here. If you look on your screen, Ukraine sunk a Russian warship apparently. Okay, this is really big news. This is a major blow to Russia's Black Sea Fleet. Okay, so this was an attack on a guided missile destroyer. Okay, this is called the Ivanovets. It's a Russian warship that you see on your screen. Supposedly, this thing was taken out by a naval drone, I believe. A naval drone hit the hull of the boat, and supposedly it sunk. And there's reports out there that only the bow is the only thing sticking out of the water. That apparently this thing sunk. So I've actually got some footage here that's been released on Ukraine's Defense Ministry Twitter page. Okay, so I want to show you this. This is basically footage here that shows this naval drone heading to attack this ship. So let's go ahead and check this out real quick. All right, so I just want to kind of talk about this real quick. So if you see here, look at how big this explosion is. They must have had a lot of explosives on that naval drone when this thing hit, because that was a massive explosion there. Look how big that is. It probably even ignited, many of their missiles that they had on this destroyer once it hit, and that contributed to this blaze, and it's crazy. I wanted you guys to see that because it's pretty nuts. I mean, Ukraine, they put out a lot of these videos. This is not the first time I've seen this, but when did they put this out? They just put this out yesterday, actually. And this is not the first time that we've seen video footage like this of naval drones attacking ships. And they're definitely going after Russia's Black Sea Fleet heavily. Okay, they've put out several of these videos showing this kind of stuff going on. So I just wanted you to see that, so you can kind of get an idea, of this ship getting actually attacked. So yeah, that was Russia's Defense Ministry putting that out for everybody to see. So I don't know if this is completely confirmed or not yet. I don't think Russia's actually said anything, but yeah, apparently Ukraine is saying they struck this ship and it sunk. So that's a pretty big move right there. I mean, imagine if one of America's warships got sunk. I mean, I understand that Russia's basically at war right now with Ukraine, right? But I'd say for sure Ukraine has been inflicting some pretty heavy damage lately. Just over the past year or so, they've took out some major equipment. There was just that spy plane. It was like a $300 million spy plane that got shot down from Russia just a few weeks ago, I want to say. You know, they've been wreaking havoc on the Russian military, and it's very crazy to see that Ukraine has actually been able to hold up for the most part against the Russian army. Like, I think so many people were afraid that Russia was just going to roll in and take over Ukraine really easily, but it hasn't been like that at all. It's been what, 3 years now, 2 years now, and it's kind of somewhat of at like a stalemate right now. You know, the lines have been drawn. You know, the Russia's got the Donetsk region, and they're maintaining a lot of the eastern portion of Ukraine, but they haven't really advanced much. So very interesting. So let's take a look at this article here. Let's read about this a little bit. So Ukraine says it sunk Russian warship off coast of Crimea and unleashed massive missile barrage on peninsula. So there was an attack as well. Ukraine launched some missiles into Crimea as well. So let's talk about that. Ukraine's military intelligence says it sunk a Russian warship off the coast of Crimea overnight into Thursday, landing the latest in a series of blows to Russia's Black Sea fleet over mounting a massive missile attack on the occupied peninsula hours earlier. Russia's guided missile ship, the Ivanovets, suffered multiple hits to its hull before it sank overnight in the harbor. So apparently it was hit by multiple of these naval drones. So yeah, pretty nuts. Crimea's deepest lake, Ukraine's defense intelligence said. Nighttime footage supplied by Ukraine showed naval drones racing toward the Russian ship before exploding on impact, causing significant damage to the vessel. At the end of the video, they appears to have sunk with just the bow above water. CNN could not independently verify Ukraine's claims, and it is unclear from the footage which vessel was struck and when. So yeah, there hasn't been exact confirmation on this ship actually being struck, but there's some speculation and talk that yeah, this thing was sunk. So Russia's defense ministry, the Kremlin, and other Russian officials have not yet commented. So they haven't said anything yet. They maybe will, or maybe they won't. Who knows? The sinking of the Ivanovets is the latest in a series of Ukrainian strikes on Russia's Black Sea fleet, as it attempts to land both strategic and symbolic blows against Russian forces that annexed Crimea in 2014. So, yeah, I just have to say that, like, you know, Russia appears to be like a very, you know, strong army, and you know, many countries, like even America, would say, you know, they'd be a little afraid to take on Russia, right? They seem like a major superpower, but somehow Ukraine is able to carry out these attacks and make these happen. And you know, if this turns out to be true, and we get reports later that this ship really was sunk, that's pretty amazing that Ukraine has been able to carry this out, all at a time where they have literally been attacked and under siege for the last 2 years, and holding on and fighting for dear life to save their country. It's absolutely amazing to see that, and I can't believe they've been able to, you know, have the successes that they've had, and then they continue to strike Crimea as well. This is not the first time they've struck Crimea. They actually just hit Crimea, I want to say within the last like 6 months or the last year. I remember there was that British Storm Shadow missile that they launched, and they hit like a headquarters there that had Russian generals in there, Black Sea Fleet generals, and supposedly one of them had been killed, as far as I know. But then there was reports that he wasn't, so I'm not sure whether he was or not. But Ukraine's definitely been able to carry out some pretty crazy operations, and you know, do some pretty significant damage to the Russian forces. So this is on Kiev Post. Another Russian general reportedly killed in devastating Ukrainian strike on Belbek airbase, excuse me. Ukrainian airstrike on a Russian airbase in occupied Crimea. So I'm assuming this is during that strike yesterday. Whenever it said there that Ukraine attacked Crimea just hours before they attacked the Ivanovets warship. So I'm assuming they killed a top general here, according to the Kiev Post. A general was killed here. So Lieutenant General Alexander Tatarenko died in an attack on the Belbek airbase on Wednesday, according to the Crimean Wind Telegram channel. Kiev Post could not independently verify the report, and officials in both Kiev and Moscow have yet to comment. So this is not completely confirmed either, but supposedly this general here, he got taken out in those attacks. So definitely, like I said, here's some more evidence here that Ukraine looks like they're inflicting some pretty heavy losses over here for Russia, and it's amazing that we think that Ukraine would not have a sizable enough force or be effective enough to really take on the Russian army, but they are doing it. They are doing it, guys. They are taking on the Russian army all by themselves for the most part. I know they're getting help, obviously from the West. I'm sure they're getting lots of intelligence help, but a lot of the pulling of the the trigger is being done by the Ukrainians, and it's amazing that they're able to achieve what they're achieving. But again, this is the West, not so much Ukraine. This is the West fighting Russia. So if if Ukraine didn't get the support that they were getting from the West, I don't think they would be fighting as long as they have. And I think they would have struggled a lot harder without all the help, and they probably would have collapsed by now, and Russia may have taken them over. So yeah, that's crazy. When I found that news, I was like, wow, another general that was taken out. It's amazing that the Ukrainians have been able to do that. So let's just kind of briefly talk about this as well. Zelensky set to announce dismissal of Ukraine's top commander within days as rift grows over the war, sources say. So this guy here too, this is Zaluzhny, Valery Zaluzhny. Okay, so he's the top commander of the army, and supposedly he's supposed to be getting removed. And there's lots and lots of reports coming out saying that Zelensky plans to remove him, but it hasn't happened yet. And this has been going on for about two days now, maybe 3 days, and he hasn't been removed. So I'm not sure if he's going to be. So Ukraine's popular army chief, Valery Zaluzhny, was called to a meeting at a president's office on Monday and told he was being fired. Two sources familiar with the matter told CNN following weeks of growing speculation over tensions between Volodymyr Zelensky and his top commander. A formal announcement has not been made, meaning Zaluzhny was still in post as of Wednesday evening. However, a presidential decree is expected expected by the end of the week, one of the sources told CNN, and what would be the biggest military shakeup by Zelensky since the start of Russia's full-scale invasion almost 2 years ago. Rumors of the meeting and Zaluzhny's dismissal exploded around Kiev on Monday evening, lent credibility by a rift widely understood to have opened up between the president and his commander-in-chief following the failure of the Ukrainian counteroffensive last year. So I'm not sure if that's the reason why they're wanting to remove him, but there's some other information here. Tensions are said to have risen, in particular when Zaluzhny described the war with Russia as a stalemate in an interview and essay with The Economist magazine in November. So I do know that in Ukraine right now, there's lots of corruption that's being found, which, is just very obvious. Ukraine is a very corrupt country as it is. A lot of people funnel money through there, money laundering, all kinds of just illegal acts are committed there in Ukraine all the time. So it doesn't surprise me that we're finding out about corruption. But I don't know if maybe the fingers are being pointed at Zaluzhny, partly because of that failed offensive last year, the counteroffensive, and then also, him stating this, that, he's coming out and basically admitting that Ukraine's not doing that great of a job of fighting back against the U.S. forces, because what happens is if they claim that they're not doing that great of a job, then they've got nothing to report back to the West, because they're fighting for the West, okay, all the Western countries and the U.S. So they have to be able to show that they're using these weapons accurately that are being given to them, and that it's effectively working, because if not, they'll just cut off funding. So, but at this point, obviously, we're not at the point where it's about cutting off funding anymore, and we're going to talk about that here in just a minute. On Monday, presidential spokesman Serhiy Nikiforov told CNN and others that rumors of the Army's chief dismissal were untrue. The Defense Ministry also put out a message on its social media channels which read, "Dear journalists, an immediate answer to everyone. No, this is not true." So it sounds like this might not happen, that he may not be removed, but, time will tell. We'll have to see whether that's going to happen. And, but it looks like he may be removed. So we're going to talk about Zaluzhny just a little bit more right now, too. I've got some other information coming out of him talking about the war. Okay, so he says, Ukraine must adapt to a reduction in Western military aid, embattled army chief says. Ukraine's embattled army chief, Valery Zaluzhny, says Ukraine must adapt to a reduction in military aid from its key allies and focus ever more strongly on technology if it is to win against its war against Russia. Okay, so he's basically coming out and admitting that they're not going to get a lot of military aid from the West anymore. I think things are going to change. I think they will continue to get aid, but I think it's going to be a little bit different now. It's not going to be like in the beginning where they had this blank check and, oh, you need more money? Okay, we'll send you another 3 billion in aid. We'll send you another 10 billion, another 50 billion, 100 billion, whatever it might be. I think it's going to be looked at a little bit differently now because a lot of these countries are strapped for cash and they don't have a bunch of money to be giving Ukraine all the time. And it's very costly to fund this war. But at the same time, I think this war is necessary for the West and Russia both. It's very important for both of them to keep this war going because when these wars keep going too, that creates more funding, more money that gets spent. So that does boost economies when they spend this money, just like the United States right now with the GDP. The GDP has been going up, and a lot of that is due to the spending of this war and many funding of other wars too, just like Israel and Hamas. And so we're going to continue to see funding, I think, but it's going to be at a different level. I think it's going to be a little bit more conservative, but I don't think that Western countries are going to be willing to just completely let Ukraine go. I think countries are still going to stay in this, and they're going to want to fight till the bitter end. And just like many of these articles are stating, Russia can't win. There's no way that Russia can win. Ukraine has to win this war. But then it's vice versa, the other way around. Russia's saying that they can't lose this war, and I don't think Putin will invest all this, money and equipment and everything they've been doing to fight Ukraine and be willing to lose. So think about that. This is going to go on probably for a very, very long time, but at some point, there's going to be a decisive winner, and either way that it goes, I don't see a good outcome here. It's just not going to be a good outcome. So I want to talk about this a little bit here too. I found this on a small website called New Scientist. So Ukraine will spoof GPS across the country to stop Russian drones. A nationwide electronic warfare system called Pokrova can disrupt satellite navigation. Ukraine may already be using it to prevent strikes by Russia's drones and missiles, but doing so will affect satellite navigation in the country. So I wanted to bring this up because in that last article there, I showed you that Zaluzhny was saying they had to use the other types of technology to fight this war, that it can't just be completely conventional. They need to change the way they see this war, the way that they have to adapt differently and adapt more modernly and fight this as a modern war and use things like this, like GPS to jam signals of drones to maybe bring them down or whatever it might be. So I thought I'd just share this and kind of show that to you that, it's this type of warfare that we may be seeing now in Ukraine. They may completely change to maybe more a defensive stance, but maybe they're going to find ways to more cheaply bring down these missiles or the drones at least, because they have been getting heavily attacked. In cities like Kharkiv has been getting heavily attacked, and lots of people are getting killed, and it's been really bad. They've had lots of missile barrages launched on them inside of Ukraine, and it's just they got to do something about it. They can't just keep getting nailed like that. And right now, Ukraine doesn't have a lot of air defenses, and they're low on ammunition, low on supplies. But that could all change according to this right here. That could all change right here. So as of yesterday, the European Union, they were working out a funding package for Ukraine, and Hungary was in opposition of that nearly the entire time, the minute it was brought up. So Hungary eventually folded. They dropped their opposition and went ahead and approved $54 billion in aid for Ukraine. Absolutely crazy. That's almost as much as the amount of aid that Congress was holding up in the United States. So they basically got their money. And now this is going to fund the war for probably another year or something like that, or 6 months to a year. It's going to provide them lots and lots of equipment that they need. So let's read about this real quick. European Union has reached a deal to include 50 billion euros in funding for Ukraine in its budget for the next 3 years. The agreement came surprisingly quickly after Hungary long opposed reversed in stance. Look at that, next 3 years. That's crazy. So this war is going to go on forever and ever and ever. Who knows how long it's going to go on, but I just really wonder how much the Ukrainians can keep going on with this, because they've already been going at it for about 2 years now, right? And imagine another 3 years. That's insane that they're going to be fighting this forever. But the money will keep Kiev will help Kiev keep its economy running in 2024 and sustain essential services such as healthcare, social protection, and pensions. So see, Ukraine's got nothing. They've got no money. They're broke. They've got no supplies. They've got nothing. If it wasn't for the West to be doing things like this, they would have completely collapsed by now. I don't think they would even gotten past the first year, year and a half. But the fact that America and Europe has just been really funding this and supporting this war, they're completely supporting the economy of Ukraine and funding everything for them. So European Parliament President Roberta Metsola hailed the agreement in a press conference just hours after it was reached. She said the unanimous approval by the EU's 27 member nations meant keeping the funding within the EU budget, which gives it the added stamp of approval of the European Parliament. Ukraine is our priority, and this agreement will give the credibility, legitimacy, and the predictability that is expected from us, she said, because Ukraine's security is Europe's security. Look at that. That's how you know right there. Europe is all in on this. They are all in, and they are not giving up. And that's why I'm saying there's going to be a decisive victor here eventually. There will be. And it's not going to be good. Whichever side wins, it's not going to be a good outcome. It's going to be very terrible. So hope you're all ready for that one. I've got one last thing we're going to talk about, and then I want to get you out of here. Let's talk about this real quick. I found this online. Russia condemns Ecuador over decision to hand Russian military hardware to the U.S. for Ukraine. So look at all these countries picking a side. We got Ecuador siding with America now. Okay, so they gave military hardware from Russia over to America. Look at this. Russia's foreign ministry on Friday condemned a decision by Ecuador to hand over Russian-made military hardware to the United States for use in Ukraine as a reckless breach of contract. So they're giving the United States military hardware that they're going to send to Ukraine to use back against the Russians. Crazy. The Ecuadorian government said last month it would take up an offer from Washington to swap what it called Ukrainian and Russian scrap metal for advanced U.S. equipment worth $200 million. So what are they going to do? They're probably going to take this equipment, turn it into more bombs and turn it into more something, and send it over to Ukraine so Ukraine can lob it back at Russia. That's crazy. So now we've got Ecuador coming out and supporting the war as well. And, I'm sure they went ahead and sold it off for their own benefit so that way they can make the money. But in a way, they're over here siding with the United States now. So the U.S. said the arms it gets from Ecuador will be sent to Ukraine to help bolster its forces on the battlefield against Russia. Maria Zakharova, the Russian Foreign Ministry spokeswoman, told RIA that Ecuador's decision was made under pressure from external forces. Was it really? Maybe it's possible. Such a reckless decision was taken by the Ecuadorian side under serious pressure from outside interested parties. Very possible. Very possible that they were pressured by the U.S. or by some other Western economy or country, and probably told them, if you don't give this to us, maybe they were held, to account if they wouldn't give it up. So, yeah, I mean, look at all these countries doing this kind of stuff, guys. It's a very serious war. I'm serious. This is definitely by far the most serious war going on over there. It's not about what's happening in the Middle East. And there's way too much money involved in this. Hundreds of billions of dollars funding this war on both sides. You just follow the money. Okay, if you want to know how important something really is, follow the money. If there's a lot of money going into something, it's obviously very important. So these countries, these Western countries and Russia, they're willing to lose it all, is what it seems like. They are willing to lose it all, and nothing is going to stop them, or from getting what they want. Okay, both sides want to take Ukraine, and it's It's absolutely insane. I just can't believe it. And this war is going to continue. It's going to go on for quite a while now, and one side is eventually going to snap. And I really wonder. Russia has claimed many times that they would use nukes in Ukraine, and hopefully they never do. But they're claiming that they would eventually use them, depending on certain circumstances. And if Russia really starts to lose this war because that the West doesn't want to give up on Ukraine, and that they run out of money or funding or support for the war or whatever it might be, if they really start to struggle here, is it possible we could see a nuclear strike on Ukraine? So yeah, it's crazy, guys. But that's the latest on Ukraine. I appreciate you being here. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you enjoyed, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, and YouTube will notify you as soon as a new video goes live. We do put out several a day. So thanks again for being here. Hope you enjoyed this update. I will update you again. I'll keep an eye on the Ukraine war. Anything else comes out, I'll let you guys know. You'll be the first to know. All right, so thanks so much for tuning in. Have a great day, everyone. Take care. God bless, and we'll see you later.